Hello everyone, this is Latasha Blanton from the Real South Africa Travel and Tourism. And you're going to have the opportunity to travel with Phil Scott to
sunny South Africa. You guys are going to have the opportunity to come to Johannesburg, and you guys are going to be coming to Durban. And we're going to set it up perfectly. It's going to be like a luxury experience for you guys. At the same time, you're going to be getting some culture. And of course, you're going to get an opportunity to talk to Phil, hang out with Phil, and get his views on Africa and South Africa.
You're also going to get an opportunity to explore the lifestyles here that are available in South Africa. And we're going to do all that for you in an amazing 10 days. We do hope that you go to the website and book, because we do look forward to seeing you here.
Absolutely. Our website is therealsouthafrica.com. Go there, scroll down. You'll see a picture of Phil, and just go ahead and book there. So we'll see you here in what we like to call sunny South Africa.
We cannot disassociate the coups that are currently happening on the African continent from the West. There are other greater powers at play that enable poor leadership, that enable the oppression of civilians to the benefit of the few. And then when the coups happen, if they're in the Western favor, then they keep quiet. But only when the coups are against them is when they are all up in arms and against the coups. And this is what President Paul Kagame of Rwanda is saying. He's saying we need to interrogate the deeper causes of the coups, but we can also not ignore the powerful hand of the West that is always operating as a shadow agent in all the political instability that we're seeing on the African continent.
Good thing, but it happened. And even after colonial times, actually the sort of relationship between those who were colonized with the colonizers stayed in a different form and stayed affecting the people of the continent. One example is the incredible amount of control those people still exercise in the continent. You find those coups or bad governance happening on the watch of the very people who colonize those countries, and still working with them as if nothing is happening. When things go wrong, of course, you are right to blame the Africans.
Hello there, how are you doing? Welcome to another episode of our conversations. My name is Ondiro Oganga. I am a business journalist by profession and a digital content creator. I love coming on here, having conversations with you guys about Black people, Africans, our empowerment, and how we can rise up and take our rightful place at the global stage. This week, I want us to talk about Rwanda's President Paul Kagame. He was attending the Future Investment Initiative in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and he was one of the speakers. He had a fireside chat, and this chat was really enlightening. Let's just briefly go through some of the things that he spoke about. The moderator was, I think, a very gracious person, asked a couple of questions that were very relevant to Africa and the African economy. You know, people are very wary about investing in Africa, and he was asking, why is it important to invest in Africa? And President Paul Kagame was talking about the potential that Africa has, the population of Africa, the natural resources, how even just with the population, we're very educated, we're very open-minded. The continent, large parts of it are still very green, and it offers investors great opportunities to come here and explore and invest in partnership with the people on fair business terms. And I think this is very important, because most of the time when we talk about Africa, it's almost like this dark place that nothing is happening. It was very important for him to highlight all the development work that has gone on the continent, to just ensure that we are ready for the takeoff that external investment can bring on the continent. The moderator then went ahead to ask about political instability, because it's one of the things that will always come up. Why should we invest in Africa? When we watch the news, we're not seeing positive things about Africa. It's also important to know that in the recent past, just in the last 2 years, there have been over 7 coups in the Western Sahel. You know, there's been a coup in Mali, there's been a coup in Niger, there's been a coup in Burkina Faso, there's been a coup in Gabon, there's been a coup in Guinea. So a lot is happening, and as an investor, when you see all this news popping up on mainstream media and social media, it can make you a little bit wary. Do I want to put my money in a place where there's so much political uncertainty and instability? And you know, there was a time I was doing a story on Guinea-Conakry 2 years later after a coup has happened. And, analysts are saying the environment has improved, but investors are still wary because you don't know what will happen the next day. You don't know what will happen the next week or the next year. The problem with military governments is they come with a lot of uncertainty and investors do not know. For a democratic institution, you know that in 5 years, then we're going to go to the election cycle and we're going to the people are going to do an election. So at least you have 5 years of stability. But with military governments, you're so uncertain because there could be another coup within the coup in the military functions. And all factors constant, President Paul Kagame was very keen to first note that it's true. We need to be concerned about political instability in the region. There are coups that are cropping up. But another thing that is true is that Africans and their leaders are committed to finding lasting solutions to the problems that we're seeing on the African continent. And the other thing that I thought was very important that he spoke about that made even the moderator uncomfortable and many people uncomfortable is the fact that coups do not happen in a vacuum. There are people that have created dysfunctional systems, that have enabled dysfunctional system years after slavery, years after colonization. Now, new years into neo-colonialization, these things enable, you understand, they enable the bad governance and they enable the coups to take place. And he was saying coups are bad when they're not in favor of the West. But if they can find somebody within the military that can continue with their agenda, then they have no problem. And he says it's very quick to blame Africans and nobody wants to hold accountable every responsible player. He was also very, he firmly condemned the leaders that create an environment that allows for political instability. But he also raised a very pertinent question. At what time will we begin holding external forces responsible for the instability that they inflict on the African continent?
We should first of all understand what the problems are and not exaggerate, and also understand that Africans and their leaders want to do their best to address these problems that have kept us all behind the rest of the world. When we talk about coups, coup d'etats are a very bad thing. There's no question about it. But people need to go beyond just hearing coup d'etats and look at what is the possible origin of these coups. And coups also presupposes that these are just military people taking over power from constitutional or civilian governments. But you have to understand also that there are some very bad civilian governments too. So that's one thing leads to another, and therefore in analyzing that, you want to see what is the cause. What is the cause of this bad thing that has happened? And then fix that. So when you look at governance generally, you want to look at which place that is able to look at or look after its own people. Make the very investments we are talking about so that people and countries can thrive. And for the time being, not even bothered so much where this is originating from. Because if bad governance is done by bad leaders who are civilians, still it is bad governance and it will cause problems anyway. And this bad governance and coups are not confined to Africa. In fact, they have association with the interaction of the rest of the world, particularly those countries that, as of origin, as we know, who were either the colonizers of this Africa. So first of all, was colonization a good thing? But it happened. And even after colonial times, actually the sort of relationship between those who were colonized with the colonizers stayed in a different form and stayed affecting the people of the continent. One example is the incredible amount of control those people still exercise in the continent. You find those coups or bad governance happening on the watch of the very people who colonize those countries and still working with them as if nothing is happening. When things go wrong, of course, you are right to blame the Africans. I think for me, I would blame them for having allowed it in the first place. Having allowed that people from outside should come to any country, to Africa, and start telling people what to do, what not to do, and when things go wrong, they just jump the ship and start blaming the very people they told to do what they did and later on backfired.
Well, that's all I had for you on this episode of our conversations. My name is Ondiro Oganga. Be sure to like this video, comment down below what you think of President Paul Kagame and his very strong and firm statement. And another thing I like about the president is it doesn't matter what forum he's at. It doesn't matter. He will give it to you as is. You like him, you don't like him, he doesn't care. He knows who he serves. He knows his masters, who are the people that have put him in office and that run the people. Any other person, he'll dish it to you. Swallow if you want, spit if you want, but he's told you his piece. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.